This is pronoun review, direct instruction day number 2. Students were given this handout on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of this week when they met for direct instruction. This was also the day we made pronoun flashcards for students to study with. And this should give you a little bit better of an idea of what the test is actually going to look like. We've got some multiple choice, some short answer. So I advise that you did the worksheet on your own and then came here to watch the screencast to see how you did. And this should give you a little bit of an idea of how much more you need to study. So the first part of this looks at just identifying types of pronouns. In bold print, it says Janet taught herself how to play the guitar. And if I look at my choices here, I know that it's either reflexive or intensive because in studying them, I remembered that those are the compound words. And so my clue for reflexive and intensive was that reflexive is required in the sentence. So if I read the sentence without my pronoun, Janet taught how to play the guitar, the meaning of the sentence changed. And so I need this word to stay here, so it's reflexive because it's required to make sense. Those are the mushrooms to avoid. I know that that is a demonstrative pronoun. It demonstrates which ones, those ones. Who wants to go to the mall? My hint here, I've got a question mark that begins with a sentence that begins with a pronoun. And so it's asking a question. If I look at these choices, remembering that interrogate is something a cop would do, and that's when they ask questions. So interrogative pronouns are ones that introduce questions. We ourselves are to blame for the mix-up. Again, I've got this reflexive intensive pronoun, the compound. So if I try reading the sentence without it, I'm left with we are to blame for the mix-up. And the sentence is fine. It has the same meaning. And so it can be taken out. It is not required. So it's intensive. And then the last one, nobody brought food on our camping trip. I know that this is not interrogative because it's not asking a question. It's not demonstrative because I already used it up here. This, that, these, those. So my choices are indefinite and personal. And when we talked about personal in class, we talked about naming a person. And this one is not naming a specific person, so it's not definite. The correct answer there is C, indefinite. The next section, which is really part B, don't know why it says A here, gives you a bunch of sentences with two pronouns to choose from. And so you've got to substitute the pronoun in the right place. And what I usually give bonus points for during tests like this is, are you going through and practicing some of the strategies that we've talked about to help you narrow down your answer? So it could be things like getting rid of prepositional phrases, just to narrow your sentence down a little bit. It's a lot easier to look at 3 words when I get rid of more than half of the sentence. So I'm left with they notice the clues or them notice the clues. The correct answer is they, and I know that that would be the subject of the sentence. And again, identifying the job it's doing in the sentence is not required, but it definitely shows me your understanding and would probably earn you some bonus points on the test. It was she or her who gave us the idea. So for this one, I've got to think back now. I know my subject is it. I've got a linking verb, was. And I remember with my linking verbs that I can reverse the order of the sentence. Her was it or she was it. And I can tell that she is the correct answer and that she is doing the job of predicate pronoun. That's not working real well. The judges gave the prize to Mark and him or he. I'm going to cross that out because it's a prepositional phrase. And if that's a prepositional phrase, I know that whatever pronoun I choose here has to do the job of an object of a preposition. I also see that I have a compound, so I'm going to get rid of Mark. And when I say the judges gave the prize to him or to he, I can see that him is the right answer because it's the object of a preposition. The diners told the waiters their or his or her choices for dinner. I got a prepositional phrase I can get rid of here. So I have a possessive that's describing choices. Choices is plural. And I've also got diners as plural. So the right answer here is their. Their is a possessive. It's plural. And it's referring back. We call the noun that there refers to is the antecedent. Diners, instead of saying the diners told the waiter the diner's choices for dinner, which would be very redundant, we can substitute in with a pronoun. We or us gardeners are anxious for spring to come. Here we've got we or us emphasizing who the gardeners are. So one way to think about this is to get rid of that. It's kind of giving the subject twice, and we don't need it twice. So now I can narrow it down. I can get rid of for spring. I can get rid of this infinitive. So now I'm left with we are anxious or us are anxious. And so the right answer here is we. It's doing the job of the subject of the sentence. So I would say, we gardeners are anxious for spring to come. Everybody brought their or his or her sleeping bag to the campout. I know that everybody is one of those indefinite pronouns, and I know that it's also singular. And so anytime I'm talking about a singular, I need all my pronouns to be in singular form, so I have to use his or her. Another hint here is that I'm talking about one sleeping bag at a time, and so that's singular as well. All of the players practice their or his or her free throws before the game. I could get rid of before the game here. I could get rid of the players. So all practiced his or her or their free throws. I know that all is my indefinite pronoun. And all is one of those pronouns that could be singular or plural. So I've got to look at my antecedent. All refers to players. If players is plural, then all is plural. Then there has to be plural. Who or whom called the cable guy? My strategy for who and whom is to substitute he for who and him for whom. And so would I say he called the cable guy or him called the cable guy? And since I would say he, then I would use who. The finalists in the contest were Georgia and me or I. I would get rid of in the contest, and I'm left with the finalists were Georgia and I or me. And I can see I've got a subject, finalists, were is the linking verb, and I've got a compound. I could get rid of Georgia and, so I'd be left with I or me. And I remember that the linking verbs allow me to reverse the sentence. So I would think, would I say I were the finalist or me were the finalist? And of course neither of those even sounds correct, and that's because we had a plural here. So I've got to change my verb to was. Would I say I was the finalist or me was the finalist? And it would be I, which is a predicate pronoun. To who or whom did you give your lunch money? I can see to can indicate either an infinitive or a prepositional phrase. Since I'm substituting it in with a pronoun, I know it's not a verb, and so it's got to be an object of a preposition. And so when I think of my substitution here, I would either use he or him. Did you give your lunch money to he? Did you give your lunch money to him? And the correct answer there would be to him. Okay, and I can see as I'm going through the screencast that I've got some punctuation errors. For some reason, when things copy over into Smartboard, spacing and all kinds of things get screwed up. So I do apologize for that. Okay, the next part was just some short answer. The first part is to explain how nouns and pronouns are the same. And on your flashcard, we kind of did a comparison between nouns and pronouns. And we said that nouns and pronouns both name And of course, since this is an explain, I would want to write in complete sentences and CSRQ and use capitals and periods appropriately. Nouns and pronouns both name people and things. They can also be singular or plural. I'm not going to go through and give you too many ideas here because I know you have your notes from class today on your note cards, but you should be able to explain to me the difference between nouns and pronouns, how they're similar, how they're different, how I can identify them in a sentence. What job do the object pronouns take? We reviewed that earlier. Object of a preposition. And when we look at object here, just kind of as another little study trick, all of our jobs are also going to have object in them. Object of a preposition. Oops, why did it do that? Well, I've got direct object and indirect object. So all of our object choices have to have object in them. When we take the idea from a subject pronoun, well, subject is an easy one because it's already part of its name, subject. And so if I think of my iPod's jobs, we've got indirect object. The P stands for predicate pronoun, and that's my other job because I haven't used it yet. I'm not going to review this because we just did that on the last paper. What's the difference between a reflexive and intensive? And we kind of talked about that way back here when we were doing these Janet taught herself and we ourselves. So reflexive, we said, our little mnemonic to help us remember that is that reflexive is required. And of course, I would expect you to be able to write an explanation of this using some examples, using your definitions, and writing in complete sentences. Okay, so I'm going to stop this screencast at this point and do part 2 here in a few minutes.